Hello, and welcome to my meditation log, day 1. It technically was like day 3. What's today? July 31st. I should have started this at the beginning of the month. I don't know why I started on July 31st. I probably should have just started on August 1st, but here we are. The point of this meditation log, I actually started it a few weeks ago and made a couple of videos, and then I didn't meditate again, and then I got upset at myself and got all discouraged, which is really silly when I think about it. But anyway, the point of meditation log day 1 is to give an introduction to some habits that I'm trying to implement into my life, and I am attempting to use this video journal as a way of what's that word? I'm spacing out on that word. Even after meditating, my brain is still not awake. Accountability. I'm using it as an accountability booster because there are certain habits that I'm trying to implement into my life, and I realize that they have really excellent benefit, and this is a way of making sure that I do them. The first being, obviously, meditation, because this is a meditation log. I'm attempting to meditate every day for 15 minutes. What that means is sitting on the ground, in silence. That's really the only bound I have. For 15 minutes straight, I have been putting a timer on my phone and using that to alert me of the 15-minute mark. Potentially down the road, I might attempt to meditate for a bit longer, but for now, just the only bound is 15 minutes. I want to try not to squirm and move around, but I'm learning that sometimes, depending on how my heart is doing, that doesn't always work. Sometimes I have meditations that are like really, I guess, I don't know what the word is, but they have more depth, and then other ones seem a little bit more surface level. When I'm struggling with things, I end up just kind of thinking about all these different surface level things that are bothering me. I guess that's kind of the easiest way to put it. But anyway, yeah. So 15-minute meditation. The second thing is reading. I thought for a while about making this one just learning, like learning based, and saying like, okay, 15 minutes of learning. But truthfully, I have really been enjoying reading books, which for a lot of my life, that was very hard for me. I don't know what has changed in the past year, or few months, that has actually really made me enjoy picking up physical books and reading them. I know this sounds really stupid, but I had a really hard time with that growing up. My mom would actually pay me money to read classic books, and I even remember reading The Great Gatsby when I was like 12 or 13, before high school. She paid me $10 to read it, and it just felt like pulling teeth. Like I don't know what that says about me, but I'm really happy to announce that I actually really enjoy sitting down and reading books now. I still can't do it for too long, up to half an hour at a time is still kind of like, that's enough. Like it feels productive to do it for about that much time. I know there are people that are absolute bookworms that can do it for hours. But anyway, the second habit is just reading for 15 minutes. Really basic. If I'm into the book and I want to read longer, great. But hopefully this will help me accomplish the goal of an overall goal. This one's not set in stone, but I just want to read more. I want to be educated. And, that's also why for a while I was tossing around just having the daily goal of learning. That's kind of something that I used to do for a while, where I was like, all right, I just want to learn a little bit each day, and that's sufficient. But I think that reading is more intentional, and I'll tell you why. Because when you pick out a book, you're conscious of like at the very least, what you're going to get out of the book, you know, like you have a conscious thought of like, this book looks interesting because I'm interested in this area of my life, or improving this part of my life, or learning about this thing. And I'm saying this all from the basis of, you know, I like reading nonfiction, but even from a fictional standpoint, you might pick out a fictional book and say, I hope to get XYZ out of this fictional book, you know, rather than like listening to podcasts is almost kind of like informational entertainment, which I just don't think is like obviously it's good to have, you know, a variety of informational sources coming at you when we have the infinite void of information online today. It's good to have options and take in, you know, different opinions, but it's not conscious. You know, it, like in my opinion, like listening to a podcast is, it's obviously better than doom scrolling, but in a way it's not, right? Like it's just a random person telling you a random thing about a random subject, and you're like, ooh, that's cool. And then you move on, you know, that method of, ooh, that's cool, and then you move on, is not changing anything physically about your life, if that makes sense. So anyway, second habit, meditation. First habit. Second, reading for 15 minutes. And then the third one I am actually doing right now. I put in journaling for 15 minutes, and I thought about it for a while that I wanted to have the opportunity to video journal. And the reason for that is that I have historically gotten a lot out of doing this type of thing, just talking to a camera, talking out loud. I think in some of my like earlier days, I used to just like, I mean, I still do talk to myself a lot, and some people might think that's kind of weird. But really, when I'm having issues or problems in my life, it's really meditative and helpful for me to speak it out loud, which for a while was, you know, also connected to that. I used to only like audiobooks. Like I would tell people like, oh, I can't read a physical book. I really just want to learn with my auditory senses. Thankfully that has changed. But anyway, so the journaling for 15 minutes, I'd say, is the one that's the most loosely based on time, because if I make a video here right now and it's 10 minutes and I feel like that's sufficient, great. That's great. I don't want to push any more out of myself than I need to. However, I do think that writing out exactly how you're feeling, or talking about exactly how you're feeling, these are all excellent ways to, you know, process what you're thinking about, what you're going through, what's going on. You know, after the meditation, I like, the point of this video is to talk about the meditation, and in a way, like what I'm meditating on is kind of, you know, what's coming up to the surface, what's most important in my life, what's going on. You know, I'm realizing that's kind of what happens. And there's a lot of stuff that comes up. So yeah, those 3 habits I'm going to try and do for the month of August. I'm going to try and do it all 30 days. I'm not going to beat myself up if I miss a day. I'm going to try my absolute best to not miss a day. But I just don't think it's I mean, as I learned, I did two other days, and then I missed a day, and I just like threw myself under the bus instead of just being compassionate with myself and saying like, hey, it's okay. Like, you're trying, you know, you're trying something, and there's nothing wrong with trying. You don't have to show up and try and be the absolute best at something immediately. That's just crazy. And so much of my stress and anxiety comes from this like idea that I need to show up and be the absolute best and know exactly where I'm going and know exactly what is for me. And I just don't think that that's healthy and helpful. And I want to be more kind to myself. So I'm going to try for 30 days. Try for the month. If I do it, awesome. If I run into some roadblocks, awesome. It's not that deep, bro. It's not that deep. It's just trial. It's just experimentation. So much of life is just experimentation. You have to try something to open a new door, and you can't think about it so intensely and like just I have this I realized that I was raised with some amount of a competitive mindset, and it makes me an incredibly harsh critic when I seem to fail. But now I'm learning like the bounds of failure are things you just put on yourself. And that can be for, for good or for bad. I see people online doing things like this, and I watch them and I think like, why can't I do that? What's really holding me back from just exploring myself and just experimenting, just trying something new? And the answer is pretty simple. It's just me. I'm the person who puts the bounds. I'm the person who chains myself down and says, until it's absolutely perfect, like you're worthless, essentially. Like that's the story I've been telling myself, is that you have no idea what you're doing. And fact is that nobody has any idea what they're doing. All of the people that you subscribe to online, even professional experts in fields, like they're making their best guess. Really, they're investing their life into something and they're saying, yeah, like this is what I'm interested in, and I experimented. And I've been consuming this podcast called The Diary of a CEO. I highly recommend it. You should definitely check it out. It's with the host is this guy named Stephen Bartlett. He's a really, really amazing interviewer, and he picks out candidates from all over the world in different professions and stuff. And I think when I'm listening, and I like to watch the podcast on YouTube because I like seeing the people's faces and stuff. It's a bit more entertaining and fulfilling, I think, instead of just listening. Personal opinion. Some people like to just listen. But you see these professionals, and I think the thing that I'm like learning about it is I'm just realizing all these people that seem, accomplished and fulfilled, like they struggle with the same things that people that haven't done anything with their life struggle with. So, yeah, I think that might be it for the day. I shaved my head. Here's to trying some new habits and approaching the pressure. I didn't even actually talk about my meditation today. My meditation was really... my meditation today was very much I felt kind of sporadic. I was kind of jumping all over the place, thinking about a bunch of different things. I also got back on social media, specifically on Instagram yesterday, and I did that for a funny reason. I feel like I should just tell you guys because it's kind of funny. Yeah, I don't really care. I doubt anybody is still listening this deep anyway, but I was going to direct message this girl that I'd met like a week ago with some of her friends, and I followed her, and then she didn't follow me back, and I just like I fell into this obsession, or like, of just like, oh man, like maybe she doesn't like me. And then I was like, well, maybe she just didn't like know it was me and my profile, because my name isn't really my name. And yeah, I don't know, it just further, and then I just ended up doom scrolling for like 3 hours. And I think maybe doing this is kind of trying to counteract, like, all right, that was something I maybe didn't want to do, but we all just kind of coast through life trying to find our feet and trying to figure out what we need when we need it. And it's just a funny place to be, being alive. But yeah, that was one thing I thought about in the meditation. I also thought about having the habits that I want to be built up, like what that will feel like when they're actually built up, and I can kind of stand on them instead of it just being like a desire into the future of like, oh, I hope I can be like this person, I hope I can do that, and you get these like future projections that kind of just run your show amok, instead of just waking up and doing a thing. You know what I mean? Like, instead of just waking up and living the life you want to live, you're obsessing over an idea that you didn't even try yet. And that gives me a lot of anxiety. Because I'm like, well, what if this goes wrong? Like, what if somebody doesn't like it? What if I can't do it? What if, I ask myself all these just incredibly horrible questions that just deter me from trying anything. And it's really sad. And I really am working on just having more compassion for myself, and you should have more compassion for yourself too, especially when you're just trying something. Like, you're allowed to try. You're allowed to try. You're allowed to just do something and put it into the world. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be all thought out. Like, how are we ever supposed to unlock who we are when we have these restraints on ourselves to be perfect and to... It's annoying. And I do it to myself for sure. I think something else I've been thinking about, which didn't come up too much in the meditation, but I've just been trying to allow myself to actually feel what I'm feeling, which is such a basic thing. But it has a lot of truth in it. I've had traumatic experiences in my life that have made my body tight, and I am attempting to relieve the tightness by allowing myself to actually feel the full gravity of what happened to me. That's kind of a new thing. I think that we build up walls around, we like reinforce our walls with the things that happen to us, and we vow to be protected and never to be harmed again. But that's not how life works. And turns out that we're all pretty damn tender. And the more you even try to do that, the tougher of an experience you're going to have, because you're not, by not letting in the things that maybe would poke at you, you're also not letting in the things that would nourish you and help you. And that's something I am realizing now too, is that when I get into these tougher states mentally, I need to be letting in, I need to be letting in the things that will nourish and help me. And to do that, I have to feel my feelings and talk about them and like humanize them. And if I don't do that, I'm like just kind of screwed, and we do this to ourselves by shutting ourselves off and shutting ourselves out to the people around us that love us, that want to help us. Funny thing, on Diary of a CEO, the podcast I was listening to last night, I forgot I think it was Dr. Suzuki. I forgot her first name. She's a neurologist, brain scientist. I could be misnaming her title, but she talked about one of the stats that was like the number one contributor to like life and longevity is the value of your close relationships. It's like the depth and value of your close relationships with people is the number one thing that makes you live longer. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. It's kind of like obvious too, though. It's like we need people to survive. Everybody needs people. Can't go on without them. My neck is like cricked. I've been like leaning into this because I'm like trying to be center in the camera this whole time. I think I've been talking way too much for this first episode. Maybe I need a podcast myself so that we don't have to do this. But this was episode 1 of a thing that I'm trying. Here's to trial. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. I hope you can relax and take deep breaths. I hope you can feel connected to the people near you. I hope that you can call on your deeper soul self to remind you of what is important. I love you so much. See you next time.